All right, last night at Lenovo Center, I watched people play hockey. I know it feels like it's been a while, and I guess it has. It was basically right around Memorial Day when the Carolina Hurricanes were done playing hockey. But, man, I missed it. I missed seeing Tripp Tracy in the radio booth, and he joins us on the Adam Gold Show. It was good to be back. It was good to be in your presence, sir.
AG, ditto, referencing back to the movie Ghost. Before you dive into it, master of the obvious point, but, the last time we were in that booth together was obviously Game 5 of the Eastern Conference Final, and I get it. It's a totally different atmosphere. You got a playoff crowd. The stakes are so unbelievably high, but, one of the things that popped to me last night, my dear friend, is just how dialed in structurally teams are when they get to that point versus the first game of a preseason. I get it. It's a totally different galaxy, but, for those that don't believe that structure is entertaining, as I was walking my dog just, a couple of minutes ago, I'm thinking, that structure and the other extreme, the last time we were in the building, not the preferred outcome, because Florida advanced, but I disagree with those that don't think that a true dialed-in structure is entertaining, because that was one of the things that truthfully popped to me last night of what a stark difference, in terms of structure between those two games. I get it. It's the total extreme, but it was a takeaway, partner.
Now, here's the thing about it, though, is that I also think that based on some of the, and I don't know about what the Lightning's roster decisions will be. They dressed one of their NHL lines. It was a fourth line, but they dressed, or maybe a third line, a combination of it. So they dressed some NHL players. But there's a number of players for the Hurricanes who played last night, and I'm not talking about the three NHL forwards. I'm talking about, a Bradley Nadeau, maybe, one of the other young guys, Justin Robidas. Some of these guys definitely want desperately to impress, and I think there might have been an element of also trying a little bit too hard, trying to make the proper play, trying to do things rather than just play that maybe contributed to some of the messiness that we saw in the first couple of periods.
I don't disagree with you, because it's not a preseason game for, the guys that are looking to take the next step. And, and again, as I was walking Frank this morning, I just kept coming back to the word trust. Trust. You want to build trust, in particular with Rod Brind'amour and then his coaching staff. And, it's no biggie, but it was not a great night for Bradley Nadeau. And, if it's a regular season game, when I mention the word trust in the dying seconds of a period, you've got to A, know what the clock is.
Yep.
And B, know that, however you do it, even if you throw the puck back below the goal line, that you got to manage the puck. And I just kept coming back to whether it be, such a promising player like Nadeau or Nikishin as he adjusts, being able to get comfortable and be trustworthy within the system. Today, after just one game, Adam, I just kept coming back to building trust with the coach. And you do it in different ways, and that's a huge part of the opportunity, for the players that are looking to take that next step.
All right, let's talk a little bit about Alexander Nikishin. We played the highlight at the top of the show of Nikishin skating across the rink from right to left. It happened right in front of us, and saying hello, introducing himself to Dylan Duke. Clean hit, straight on, still had the puck when Nikishin made contact. And that's the element. That was the best thing he did. I thought he was fine. I didn't think he was great. I certainly didn't think he was bad. He didn't make any mistakes that I could really tell. But that element is an element that Carolina does not have anywhere else in their lineup. How good was it just to see that part?
Terrific. Because when he did it, came across the ice, within 3 or 4 feet of the Hurricanes bench to deliver that really good, clean hit. It actually made me think of, different stages of their careers, but when Will Carrier played in his first preseason game last preseason as a Hurricane, and I think his first shift, it was below the goal line on the forecheck, delivered a bone-crunching hit. So to see that type of physicality from Nikishin, he's known for it in the preseason, I thought was terrific. I thought it was, there were some productive moments as to why it's necessary for him to play as much as possible. There was one time late in the first period where, when a guy has the puck but he's blinded by what to do with it, communication is especially important. Mm-hmm. And if he doesn't know what a guy shouting time or you've got time means, then it's not an advantage. And, he ended up making a good play, and it's little communication moments like that I think are very, very important. He looked pretty solid in terms of quarterbacking that power play early in the second period. They were in for the whole 2 minutes, but, I thought he deferred, which can be the case in a power play in the preseason where you don't establish the shot. The last time that we saw a power play in the Eastern Conference Final, how did Florida score on their power play? Simplicity, shooting the puck. There was nothing rocket scientist oriented to it. So I'd like to hope that as he gets more power play reps and maybe competes with Keandre Miller for who's going to be the guy in that second unit, that there's less deferral. I thought that it was a really good experience for him with the long second period change at one point. He killed a penalty, and Carolina iced the puck, so he had to learn of when you're so far from the bench in the second period of how you deal with being tired and still make the proper play. So there was a lot to the good, but it's going to be a process, and the biggest part of the process, and Rod alluded to it in his post-game remarks, and I'm sure he will in his hot stove with you before, the game tomorrow night, is how you get Alexander Nikishin not just comfortable systematically with how Carolina plays, but to buy in systematically to how Carolina plays.
Yeah, and you want to see him dictate. I agree. On that power play where they had the puck in the zone for the entirety of the 2 minutes, he passed up some opportunities to shoot that you would rather see him shoot. I thought Jackson Blake was really good last night. What did you think of the way that top line looked? I thought Blake and Stankoven were good. I thought Taylor Hall had some moments that he doesn't want to see on film, but I thought Blake and Stankoven specifically were good.
Yeah, I agree. When I got in my car and I listened to you speak about Jackson after the game, and I think that the biggest thing that popped to me with regards to Jackson is here he's established himself. He signed a long-term extension that'll kick in next season that, that I personally think is going to be a phenomenal contract for the Carolina Hurricanes. I've told you before, I'm on record. I think that just because of the players' desire to continue to improve, that it's going to be a great contract. And so when I think about Jackson last night, he's already established himself. You mentioned how many shots on goal he had. It's how competitive he was, and really it's a tune-up game for him. So that's what struck me with Jackson. And then Stankoven, he looked the part in the middle, and, his face-offs were just under 50% through 2 periods, and then he ended up, in the high 50s. So that tells me that, he got more comfortable in the face-off circle as the game wore along. I thought his tip was a very skillful tip. And then, I mentioned to you in the first intermission, I believe it was, that, because you're going to sit here and you're going to think about if he can do it against certain teams in the NHL, is size going to be an issue? And I'm just, forecasting it's just a preseason game, but the Tampa Bay Lightning won back-to-back Stanley Cups. I know about all their weaponry from the goal on out, but they had Tyler Johnson and Yanni Gordon, their 2 and 3 spot in the center ice position. So that occurred to me based on who the opponent was last night that it can be done. But I liked how Stankoven got better, including the faceoff circle as the game wore along at it.
Tripp Tracy joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. Who else stood out to you last night?
I thought he's getting a lot of buzz, but I thought, the Legault was sound. I thought he was pretty clean with the puck, physical at different points. That's going to have to be, especially that strong physical presence, that's going to be noticeable if he's going to truly take the next step, depending on, we hope it's not an issue, but what Carolina's health is on the blue line. Fensori, games 81 and 82, and then again last night, I notice him virtually every time that he's on the ice with his foot speed, and I'm particularly looking at his ability to defend, and that's not an NHL lineup for Tampa, so I'll continue to look at that. But I thought that pairing had a nice night. I also would mention AG that Tyson Jost last year, was just starting to get it going, and he got hurt right around the new year, which was particularly bad timing for him. Such a team-first guy, chose to come back, knowing, what the numbers were. Could be an unbelievable leadership guy, in Chicago, extra guy here, and he has what you desire to have with the coach. He's got trust with Rod brind'amour. So Jost was a guy, it's even though it's an overturned goal, and it was offside, it's a heck of a play that he makes, and then LeBanc is as good as Johansson was in the Tampa net. It's still, even though it's an overturned goal, I don't think it's an overturned goal when the coaches look at it, when management looks at it. So that was a really nice play. So Tyson Jost would be a guy that, we know him, but jumped to me, and that pairing of Legault and Fensori, I'd say. Yeah,
I love Dom Fensori. He's just such a good skater. I don't know if he's a lefty, which I believe he's a lefty. He doesn't really, might not be great because there's so many lefties here, but my gosh, he's noticeable all the time. He had a couple of turnovers, but I think he's a guy who makes plays. And maybe he's a guy who's going to play 22 minutes a night. He was second on the team in ice last night behind Nikishin, who played about 23 minutes. Fensori played about 21 and a half. Nobody else played as much as 20. It was impressive to watch that kid play. So I know we're going to see more of the NHL group on tomorrow, and I know that building is going to be, I think, pretty loud because it's the community game and the tickets are cheap, and I think parking is a donation. They're not demanding all the money from you. I think it has potential to be a really, really fun environment and an early start, so we can get to bed earlier, Tripp.
I love this decision that Florida and Carolina makes in the two preseason games they play with that 6 o'clock start, because really it's a mutual beneficial decision, that Florida gets home. I haven't looked to see. I assume it's a one-off for them.
Sure.
And when Carolina goes to Florida, that you get back at a much more reasonable hour for the road team. That assuming the lineup is what I think it's going to be tomorrow. The power play last night, you can toss it just because you have guys that haven't practiced. You don't know who's going to be in. Rod does, but you don't know who's going to be in the lineup in terms of when you practice the power play and the practices leading up to game number 1 in the preseason last night. I assume the horses, because you only have 2 remaining home games tomorrow and then Ryder Cup Sunday.
Yes.
That the boys will be dialed right in to the monitor, probably right before up to warm up, and then maybe even they'll never say it between warm up and the game. But tomorrow, I think, especially for what has been the A power play featuring Nikolai Ehlers in practice, I think it's something to watch when Carolina goes on the power play because they've had some reps already. And so in the case of tomorrow's lineup, that's a dimension that I'm really going to want to take a look at. But you only have 2 more home games. Don't anticipate your regulars playing on the road. So, we'll get a look at a real NHL lineup, I would suspect, tomorrow.
On Sunday, I wouldn't be shocked. I'd check the iPads on the bench. You never know. That could be locked into like the last few singles matches and at Bethpage. Tripp Tracy, I'll see you tomorrow evening, sir.
I can't wait. And by the way, I don't know who's going to go on Sunday. Coach Chetkov wouldn't be dialed into the tablet,
no.
But if Anderson's going against Nashville on Sunday, the golfer he is, I'm going to be watching him during commercial timeouts early in the hockey.
Be checking his phone. Why does Anderson have his phone on the netting by the water bottle? All right, man. I'll talk to you later.
Have a great afternoon, H.
You too. Tripp Tracy, the best.